And the third one, you got to pick degree of difficulty and all that sort of stuff. I could understand people not picking the last choice because it involves risk, right? Sometimes you pick a hard question, you overestimate your skill in that topic. I can understand all of that. But in the presence of number two, is there any rational reason why anybody would pick number one? Because I'm basically saying uh, for 15 questions, I'm going to tell you the topic, but I'm going to give you the questions I want. And on 15 questions, you are going to choose the topic. On the first choice, you have no choice at all. So, is there anybody who thinks that they would be worse off picking the second choice? Now that I explained it to you, okay, I'm going to tell you the results. I'm actually writing a paper on this. I'm going to present it in a conference, hopefully feeling better at the end of the month. I gave this choice to my students in my Business 302 class, Basic Finance. Half the students picked the first choice. Half. And it wasn't like they haven't seen this before. In the first exam, they actually didn't have a choice. They knew that on some of the questions they could pick the topic, so they knew what that meant. So it didn't come out of nowhere. And when I uh, divided the students by their major, students whose major were either finance or accounting, only 25% picked the first choice. If the students' major were uh, management, marketing, general business, the so-called, non-numerary or non-quantitative measures, the percentage was 65%. So 65% of those students picked a patently suboptimal choice, not because they're dumb, but they have these biases. They don't want to do something they are not that familiar with, okay? Independent of any advantages. I mean, they know traditional multiple choice question. I mean, all questions were multiple choice. In that sense, nothing was different, but they didn't want to choose anything. They just wanted to get the questions, answer them, and get out. I mean, it didn't matter that much on how they did, partly because some of the students who picked the first one were better students, so they kind of increased their overall performance. I mean, this was a exam that was proctored in class, so it's not like those people had the advantages over the other students, but they just haven't picked it because when you make a decision, when you make a explicit decision and that decision works out against you, a lot of times psychologically, you didn't get the email. We're on Zoom today. Oh yeah, but you can stay. I came in because I wanted to get out of the house. That's all right. And finally, I have one student in class. I had more in my morning class, but it's a bigger class. When you make an explicit decision and that decision ends up hurting you, you feel responsible for that. But if you don't make a decision, or if you think you didn't make a decision, then you don't feel responsible. Years ago, I've seen this in not even an investment case, a risk management case. I had started working for a bank, and this bank was recently bought by the biggest beverage group in Turkey. And these guys bought rights to distribution of all Coke products in Turkey, and it cost them $50 million. Coke basically told them, "Oh, we'll finance you guys, okay? So you'll basically pay us over 10 years, no problem." And the problem with this company was most of their revenue was in either Turkish lira terms, or they did a lot of exporting to European countries, mostly Germany. So in that sense, they were carrying a cross currency risk. If US dollar gained a lot in value against Deutschmark, that would have essentially increased their cost of borrowing this $50 million, right? It's kind of a no-brainer. So one of my specialties is, especially in foreign currency, is risk management. So we belong to this company. So I figured this is one of the easiest sells I can do. I was in charge of product development and risk management products. So we go to the firm, we sit down with the CFO, we make a plan. CFO is a very smart guy. He was an accountant, but still smart. You know, as you know, I always kid my with my accountant friends. And he said, all I have to do is take this to the CEO. He'll put his stamp of approval. We'll basically do a deal using cross currency futures. No problem. Very easy to implement and doesn't even cost much since it's our group company. Technically speaking, we were making some money off of it, but they own 90% of the company anyway. So it didn't matter too much. And we go to the CEO, and CEO says, "No, I'm not going to do it." I said, "What?" He said, "I'm not going to do it." I said, "Why?" He says, "Okay, if I don't do anything and nothing happens, oh, and dollar gains value, nobody's going to blame me for that. But if I actually do the hedge, when you do a hedge, as the name suggests, let's say dollar gain value, okay, your hedge makes money. And your increase in the cost of your dollar borrowing is going to be compensated by the gains that you make in the futures hedge. That's kind of the idea. On the other hand, if you do the hedge, dollar actually loses value, your hedge is going to lose money. The loss that he's going to see from increased uh, or the gains that he's going to get from his decreased dollar cost is not going to be apparent to his upper management or the board. But that loss from the futures is going to be there. So he doesn't want to take that risk. He actually thinks by not trading, he's not making any decision, but he is. Anyway, this was, let me see, mid 1996. I mean, there was an election where Bill Clinton was re-running for election. If he won, we kind of figured out dollar is going to gain quite a bit of value. Those days, $1 was trading around 140-ish or so against Deutschmark. The higher is the exchange rate, the more valuable is dollar. And in October or November, Bill Clinton won in a landslide, and dollar went up to around 160. And I keep emailing this guy pretty much every week. You lost this much money this week. You lost this much money this week. And finally, he gave up around 170 or so. In the meantime, it actually cost them 15 million Deutschmarks more to carry this loan. This was all, I mean, that's $10 million. You borrow $50 million, it now costs you $60 million because you did not cover the cross currency risk. Finally, they did it. Okay, things are going well. Dollar went up to 180, 185. They're happy. In the meantime, I got a job offer from London, so I left the bank. And summer of '98, there was a big currency crisis. Russia defaulted on their loans, on their foreign currency loans. Initially, dollar Deutschmark was even higher, so these guys are happy. And but then there was a crisis with. Did we talk about the long-term capital management last week? The long bond versus short, old bond versus new bond. Maybe I talked about it in my investments class. Sorry. Oh, I talked about it in my investments class.